Allie Brawley with Northern Life Yoga, and I wanted to provide a nice gentle practice. This is going to be about 20 minutes or so, so not a long practice, but one to just help us all feel a little bit grounded. And certainly in a time where there's a lot of activity and a lot of change, as well as uncertainty, a gentle practice is great for anybody. So even if you're someone that likes to go and practice yoga flow and other things that are maybe more active, I highly recommend interspersing some gentle yoga practices in your weekly activity, because it's a really good way to stay grounded and to find a little bit of peace and ease amidst a lot of change and transition. So we're going to get started in a seated position. I'm sitting in hero's pose. I'm sitting on my heels. If that's not comfortable for you, you can grab a pillow, or certainly just sit cross-legged or with your legs out in front of you. So choose what's going to be best for your knees and your feet and your ankles and your hips. And then just take a moment to settle in and either close the eyes or soften your gaze. Maybe just focus on something in front of you and start to follow the flow of your breath. One of the quickest ways to bring your mind into a sense of peace and calm is to simply start to follow the flow of your breath, and then to slow the breath down. So take even fuller inhales, and then elongate your exhales. Make the breath audible. When you're practicing at home, make it so audible that any pets nearby can see you. They might be inspired to join your practice. Make it audible enough that if you were practicing in the studio, you would be inspiring the people around you. And once you follow the flow of your breath, just let your eyes slowly open. And we're going to come on to hands and knees. So if you were sitting cross-legged, you can kind of roll forward. If you're sitting in hero's pose like I was, it might feel good to just rotate the ankles or windshield wiper the feet. When you're practicing at home, you want to just make sure you're set up in a way that's supportive to your practice. So I happen to be on a hardwood floor and a very thick rug, which is really nice for my knees. But when I'm in the studio and there's not a rug underneath me, I usually use 2 mats. So make yourself comfortable, just knowing that you're probably in a different surface than you might be at the studio. So coming into your tabletop position, just take some moment to, or a few moments actually, to sway your hips side to side. So you want to get your spine moving in a C curve. And as you do this, start to look over your shoulder. And you want to try to bend your ear toward one shoulder at a time so you also get the stretch in the neck. And then come back to a neutral position. Walk your hands into your knees and come into a kneeling position. So this is where, again, always protect your knees, and if it's helpful, you can grab a towel, a blanket, and add a couple layers underneath your knees to make sure your knees stay comfortable. So knees can be about hip distance apart. We're just going to grab our hips, or grab onto the waist, point your elbows behind, and just start to lift your chest. Do a little bit of a heart opener, just taking your gaze up. It doesn't have to be too strong of a back bend, but just very gentle. And then take some deep breaths here. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. One more breath. And exhale. From here, we're going to straighten the spine. We're going to come back into tabletop. So ground your palms. And this time we're going to do a little cat-cow. So arch your back just like a cat. Let your chin drop in towards your chest. If it feels good, you can even kind of lean forward
and back. Noticing how that feels for your shoulders. And then come to a neutral position, let your belly drop down, your chin come forward, come into a cow pose. And then just take this movement for your spine back and forth. Add your breath. Big inhale as you come to cow. Exhale as you go into cat. And again, modify as you wish. So if there's something that feels particularly good, feel free to hold it and move with your breath. Couple more. And find your way to that neutral spine. Walk your hands into your knees. This time we're going to work with some poses for the hips. So I'm just going to turn on my mat so you can see what position I'm moving in, but feel free to stay situated so that you're using your mat to your benefit. So we're going to start by extending the right leg out, and you want to ground your foot into the mat. So feel free to turn so that you're using the width of your mat, depending on which way you're situated. And then lengthen up. Instead of thinking of kind of slouching into this pose, lengthen up. Use your core strength. Let your left arm reach up. Let your right arm slide down, and then just take this nice arch over the leg. So you're getting a nice lateral stretch to the side body. And then start to spin your collarbones open. Feel all those little rib-like muscles, the muscles that go between the ribs, the intercostal stretch. And those really help with respiration. The more we enhance our respiration, the better we can tune into our breath, and the better our breath will bring that sense of peace and calm when we need it most. So let's take 3 more here. Big inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. One more breath. And then exhale, and we're going to slowly come back up and bring the left palm down and the right arm up. So now we're in a side plank. And the same idea here, you want to, instead of collapsing through the wrist and the shoulder, you want to really use your core strength so that there's very little pressure on that left wrist. And if you want, you can even make a fist with that left wrist or left hand to strengthen the pose. Right arm is actively reaching over the ear, and you might even let the left ear relax towards the left shoulder. And then same thing here. You want to stretch one long line of energy from the right foot up through the leg, up through the shoulder, all the way through the fingertips. 3 more breaths here. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. One more breath. And release. Come back up to center. This is good balance practice, actually. Bring your right knee in, and we're just going to shift to the other side. So left foot comes out. Make sure that foot has a place to land and be solidly pressing into the mat. And this is where mats are really helpful because it just gives you a little bit of a grip. If you don't have a mat at home, it's totally fine to practice on a blanket or towel or just whatever surface you have at home. From here, we're going to let the right arm reach up and let the left hand extend down the leg. Arch up and over. Think of those little intercostal muscles that run in between each rib. You might even hear a little release in your hip. I just heard one of mine. And then spin your collarbones open. Reach for the fingertips and add your breath here. Inhale and exhale. Make each breath count. Big breath in and exhale. One more. Inhale and release. Come back up, and we'll just cartwheel the hands down. So again, this right hand might make a fist, or you can tent the fingertips. You just want to have light pressure on the right arm while the left arm reaches up and over. Spin the collarbones open, reach to the left fingertips, and then hold here. Feel that one long line of energy from the left heel up through the side body, through the arm, and then maybe even relax the right ear towards the right shoulder. 3 more good breaths here. Inhale and exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more breath in. And exhale. Gently release. We're going to come back up. Use the strength of your obliques to come back up. Pull the left knee in. Now we're set for a camel pose again. So this time, you can either grab the waist and point your elbows back, or use your fists, put your fists just gently into your low back, so your elbows point behind, and then lift the chest, lift your chin, take your gaze up. Again, a back bend doesn't have to be too extreme. You want to think of lengthening up first, and then gently arching the spine. Make sure you can take a full breath. So we'll just try 3 breaths here. If it's too hard to take a full breath, ease up a little bit. Big breath in and exhale. Inhale and exhale. One more breath in and exhale. From here, we're going to sit up nice and tall. And we're going to sit back into a child's pose. So hips to heels, arms can crawl forward, head relaxes to the mat. From here, we're going to lift the head just enough to walk the hips or bring the hips off the heels. We're going to thread the left arm underneath the right. So come into a nice twist. This is a great stretch for the spine. Should feel really good for the hips. If it's more comfortable, you can take your knees a little wider. But you just want to try to really lean into your left shoulder. This right arm can stay where it is. Some people like to wind that hand around the back. This is called a half bind. And if that's too much, you can also just keep the hand right here supporting your twist. So big breaths. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. One more breath and exhale. And then slowly unwind. I'm going to turn the other direction so my head is not facing the other way, but you can certainly stay where you are. This time we're going to thread the right arm underneath the left. Lean into that shoulder. Again, the opposite hand, so the left hand can stay right here by the head, or you can do a half bind, trying to stack the shoulders. Either way, you just want to be able to breathe fully. So 3 good breaths here. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. One more breath and exhale. Release the left hand and slowly press yourself back up. From here, come back to your tabletop position. And then just notice what your back needs. So it might be just a circling of the hips side to side. It could be some cat-cow movements. You might return to that C curve. Some of you might feel the need for a down dog. And if that's the case, curl the toes under, lift the knees and hips, and come into a downward facing dog. So choose what's best for you. If you really like being in tabletop and on the hands and knees, by all means stay right there. It's a great way to continue a good gentle practice. If you're choosing down dog, check in with your core strength. Make sure you're lengthening through the arms, sending your tailbone up to the sky, and continuing that nice long spine. At the same time, sending that stretch from hips to heels. Just a couple more breaths. And then we're going to meet back in child's pose. So lower the knees. This time you might take the knees wider, toes together, hips to heels, arms crawl forward, forehead rests on the mat. here, lift your head, walk the hands in towards the knees, and shift your hips to one side. We'll come onto our back for just one simple pose that we'll do to rebalance the spine. So make sure you have a little bit of space behind you as you roll down. This is where if you have a ponytail, I suggest releasing it for the comfort of your head. Bring your arms down by your sides. Walk your heels in so that your feet and fingertips align. Bring your knees so they're bent, and knees align over the ankles. From here, we'll lift the hips into bridge pose. So just go to the point that feels right for you. Try to squeeze the glutes and lift the hips a little higher. So you want to feel the stretch in your hip flexors. But again, do what your back allows. So if your back just goes a couple inches off the mat, that's totally fine. But you're going to find more strength in the pose when your heels are aligned underneath your knees, and when you can kind of tuck your shoulder blades underneath you and reach your fingertips towards your heels. Some of you may wish to interlace your fingers underneath your back, and then just hold a few breaths. So you feel a good stretch in the hips, strengthening in the glutes, and this is a great way to rebalance the spine, as I mentioned. So take a few moments closing the eyes and following the flow of your breath. If your hands are interlaced, you can release the hands. Take one more breath. Try to lift the hips as high as they'll go. And then try to lower down one vertebra at a time. Draw the knees into your chest. Rock gently side to side. From here, we're going to just stretch out into a relaxation pose. So your choice. You can just straighten your legs and come into corpse pose. You can bring your feet into a reclined butterfly, or you can just sit with your knees bent and feet flat to the mat. I recommend taking your hands to your belly and just settling in while you close the eyes. And again, follow the flow of your breath. With the hands on the belly. Notice the rise and fall of each breath. And then notice where you can soften throughout the body. Starting with the muscles through the face and the jaw. Relax through your shoulders. Relax through the belly, the hips, relax the arms and